A woman in wrinkled clothes stood frozen beside the boarding gate, clutching a faded handbag as silent tears rolled down her face. Everyone else avoided looking at her. I almost did too. But one simple decision, to give up my first-class seat to a stranger, would completely rewrite my life before that same afternoon was over. By the time our plane landed, 10 black luxury cars were waiting for me outside the arrivals terminal, and hundreds of people were watching as if I were someone they had been expecting all along. Before this unforgettable journey begins, if you believe that one act of kindness can change a life, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment about the greatest kindness you've ever witnessed, share this story with someone who still believes in hope, and subscribe to our channel so our community can continue sharing stories that remind us goodness still exists. My name is Grant Mercer, and until that day, I believed life rewarded hard work more often than kindness. I was 34 years old, worked as a regional maintenance supervisor for a commercial construction company, and had spent years climbing my way out of a childhood where every dollar mattered. Promotions came slowly, my apartment was modest, my pickup truck had nearly 200,000 miles on it, and I measured success by paying bills on time instead of chasing luxury. That flight was the first-class ticket I had ever purchased, a reward after receiving an unexpected performance bonus. It felt extravagant, almost irresponsible, but for once I wanted to know what flying in comfort felt like. The airport buzzed with its usual rhythm as sunlight poured through the enormous windows. Families hurried between gates, business travelers stared into laptops, and children laughed while dragging colorful backpacks behind them. Everything felt ordinary until I noticed the woman standing alone near the customer service desk. She appeared to be in her late 60s. Her silver hair had been carefully brushed, but exhaustion covered her face. Her coat looked expensive years ago, though now it carried the wrinkles of someone who had been sitting for hours. She wasn't arguing with anyone or demanding special treatment. She simply stood there trying to remain composed while quietly wiping away tears that she clearly hoped nobody would notice. Curiosity almost pulled me away, but compassion pulled me closer. An airline employee gently explained that economy was completely full and the remaining available seat was in first class. The additional fare was more than the woman could possibly afford. I overheard only fragments of her explanation. Someone she deeply loved had suffered a medical emergency. She had already emptied her savings just to buy the original ticket. Missing that flight would likely mean arriving too late. The employee apologized repeatedly, but policy left little room for exceptions. Without allowing myself time to overthink it, I walked forward and offered my first-class boarding pass. The employee looked confused. The woman looked even more confused. I simply asked whether she could take my seat while I accepted hers. The airline confirmed it was possible. The woman tried refusing several times. She insisted I had earned that seat. She apologized for becoming emotional in front of strangers. She even attempted to hand me the few bills inside her purse. I quietly declined. Some things simply shouldn't be sold. When she finally accepted, her eyes filled with tears unlike the hopeless ones from earlier. These carried gratitude so deep that words seemed too small to contain it. As we boarded, she reached for my hand for only a brief second and whispered that someday kindness always found its way home. I smiled politely. It sounded comforting. I didn't actually believe it. The economy seat wasn't terrible. It certainly wasn't first class, but it was only a few hours. I watched clouds drift beneath the wings while wondering whether I'd been foolish or generous. Perhaps both. Halfway through the flight, I noticed the flight attendants treating the older woman with remarkable care. They seemed unusually attentive after quietly speaking with her several times. I assumed they simply recognized she was having a difficult day. She remained mostly silent throughout the journey, often staring out the window with distant eyes. When we landed shortly after midday, passengers slowly gathered their belongings and filed toward the exit. I expected never to see her again. Instead, just before leaving the aircraft, she gently squeezed my shoulder and thanked me once more. Her smile carried both sadness and peace, as though she had accepted whatever waited beyond those airport doors. Then she disappeared into the terminal crowd. I collected my bag and walked toward arrivals. The automatic doors opened. Everything stopped. 10 identical black luxury sedans stood perfectly aligned outside the terminal entrance. Uniformed drivers waited beside each vehicle. Several men and women in professional suits scanned the crowd. News photographers unexpectedly gathered behind security barriers. Travelers slowed their pace, assuming a world leader or famous celebrity must be arriving. Then every driver looked directly toward me. One by one, they straightened. One of them respectfully opened a car door. Another approached with remarkable confidence. He politely asked if I was Grant Mercer. My heart nearly stopped. For one terrifying moment, I wondered whether someone had mistaken me for another man involved in serious trouble. Instead, the driver smiled warmly. He explained that Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore wished to thank me personally and hoped I would allow her family to escort me to the hospital. Hospital? The word struck harder than everything else combined. Only then did I understand. The woman hadn't simply been visiting a sick relative. She had been racing to say goodbye. During the drive, the lead driver quietly explained that Eleanor Whitmore had founded one of Europe's largest engineering companies alongside her late husband more than 40 years earlier. They had built bridges, hospitals, universities, and housing developments across several countries before retiring. After her husband passed away, she withdrew almost completely from public life, dedicating herself to charitable foundations. I had never heard her name. Apparently everyone else had. She had deliberately traveled without security that morning because she wanted one final ordinary journey after learning her younger brother had only hours left to live. Traffic moved quickly beneath bright afternoon skies as we reached the hospital. The entrance overflowed with employees, family friends, charitable foundation members, doctors, and local officials. Not because of me. Because of her. When Eleanor stepped from another vehicle, people instinctively created space. Yet instead of greeting executives first, she walked directly toward me. Without caring who watched, she embraced me like family. She introduced me to everyone as the man who had given her something money could never purchase. Time. She explained that because of my decision, she had reached her brother before he lost consciousness. He recognized her. He smiled. He squeezed her hand. He passed away peacefully less than 30 minutes later. The room became completely silent. I realized my simple inconvenience had become someone's final goodbye. No amount of luxury could compare with that. Over the following hours, Eleanor insisted I remain for a memorial gathering celebrating her brother's remarkable life. I initially resisted. I felt completely out of place among successful business leaders, philanthropists, physicians, and government representatives. Yet Eleanor refused to let me disappear quietly. She told everyone exactly what had happened. She described the airport, the boarding gate, the exchanged ticket, the refusal to accept payment. Again and again she repeated one sentence. Character reveals itself when nobody expects applause. That sentence spread through the room. People who had never spoken to me before suddenly wanted to shake my hand. Not because I was important. Because kindness reminded them of who they wanted to become. Before leaving, Eleanor asked whether we could remain in contact. I assumed it was simple politeness. It wasn't. Weeks passed. Life returned to normal. I climbed ladders on construction sites. Reviewed maintenance reports. Paid utility bills. Changed the oil in my aging truck. Then one afternoon an elegant envelope arrived. Inside was an invitation. Eleanor's charitable foundation had launched a nationwide initiative supporting families facing emergency medical travel costs. She wanted me present as guest of honor. During the ceremony, she publicly announced something I never expected. The foundation's newest program would forever carry my surname, not because I had donated millions, but because compassion deserved examples ordinary people could actually imagine themselves becoming. The Mercer Journey Fund would pay emergency transportation expenses for families rushing to dying loved ones, children needing urgent surgery, or parents unable to afford last-minute travel during medical crises. I couldn't stop staring at the stage. My surname. Attached to hope. Not wealth. Not fame. Hope. After the ceremony ended, Eleanor privately confessed something she had never shared before. Years earlier, before her company became successful, she and her husband had once depended on strangers after their car broke down during a snowstorm. A family with almost nothing had welcomed them inside, fed them, and refused every attempt at repayment. That single evening had shaped their entire philosophy of life. Whenever fortune found them, they promised it would never stop with them. My first-class seat had simply continued that chain. A kindness passed from one stranger to another across decades. Months later, the Mercer Journey Fund had already reunited countless families during their hardest moments. Parents reached hospitalized children. Grandparents met newborn grandchildren fighting for survival. Brothers reconciled after years apart before illness claimed precious time. Every story reminded me that generosity rarely ends where it begins. It echoes through lives we'll never fully witness. Eleanor became like the grandmother I had never known. She attended my wedding 2 years later. She proudly introduced me to people as her favorite accidental grandson. Whenever reporters asked why she trusted an ordinary maintenance supervisor enough to honor him publicly, she always answered the same way. Money reveals opportunities. Kindness reveals people. That answer became famous. Mine never did. And honestly, I preferred it that way. Even now, whenever I fly, I still choose my seat without much thought. Comfort is pleasant. Legroom is nice. But I never again believed the best place on an airplane is always the most expensive one. Sometimes the best seat is simply the one that lets another human being reach someone they love. Before this story comes to a close, I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a meaningful comment telling us whether you've ever experienced a stranger's kindness that changed your life, or whether you've been given the chance to change someone else's. Your story might become the encouragement another member of our community needs today. Years have passed since that unforgettable afternoon, but every time I see travelers rushing through an airport with worried faces, I remember the woman who looked like everyone else until compassion uncovered the extraordinary life hidden behind her tears. I also remember that the greatest rewards rarely arrive as money, applause, or recognition. Sometimes they arrive as peace in another family's final goodbye, hope in someone else's darkest hour, or the quiet knowledge that choosing kindness over comfort was the most valuable decision you ever made. And if this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. In a world that often celebrates power, may we never forget that the smallest act of compassion can begin a chain of miracles no one sees coming, until one ordinary afternoon changes forever.